Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you all, and good evening. This is Imam Omar. I'm the founder and president of the Yaqeen Institute for Islamic Research. Thank you for joining the call to unite. Almost 15 years ago in my hometown of New Orleans, we were struck by one of the worst tragedies in the history of our nation, Hurricane Katrina, where we had almost 2,000 people die and many more unaccounted for. In that time, as we were searching for our identity as a city, searching for new homes in neighboring states, many of us decided to come back to New Orleans and to rebuild it in a better way, to bring back the beauty that we had known before, but to also usher in a new beauty. We recognized at the time that there were certain areas of the city that were never going to be restored. We recognized that there were certain buildings that would be torn down. And of course, we were constantly reminded of the fact that there would be people that would never return. A few years later, on the 10th anniversary of another horrible tragedy that struck our nation, 9/11, but not 9/11 2001, 9/11 2011. The faith communities of New Orleans decided to get together and to do something to symbolize our togetherness. Since we had all lost members of our community, and of course, as a nation and as a humanity, lost many beloved beings on that day, we decided that we were going to do something that brought together both the unique aspect of the devastation that New Orleans had faced and the devastation that we had faced collectively as a country. And so Jews, Christians, and Muslims formed a volunteer base of over 1,000 volunteers. And we headed to Rivertown, New Orleans, where we restriped the roads, we redid the gardens, we repainted the buildings, we restored it in a way that none had imagined possible. And then that night, we decided to get together in the mosque along with city officials and members of the broader community. And to further symbolize our togetherness with, again, a New Orleans twist, we had gumbo. But it wasn't just any gumbo, it was kosher and halal gumbo side by side. I'm not going to say which gumbo was better. I'm just going to say that it was a beautiful moment that many of us relished in and recognized that had Hurricane Katrina not devastated our city, perhaps we would not have tasted the sweetness of the togetherness that we were tasting that evening. And though there were things that would never come back, New Orleans would never be normal again, there were new realities that were beautiful and that could transform the nation. And if the nation was properly transformed by that unity, could transform the entire world by example. Here we are, almost 15 years later, and this is a different type of tragedy. This isn't a tragedy where we've been attacked by some outside enemy. This isn't a natural tragedy where we've had some sort of a hurricane that has driven people to large shelters. This isn't a tragedy that allows us to come together in the way that we typically would in a physical sense in the wake of the devastation. And we don't have gumbo this time, but many Americans will be driven to soup kitchens out of hunger for the very first time in their lives. We're not able to go into flooded homes and gut them out, but many homeless shelters will be flooded for the very first time, with Americans who will, for the first time, experience what it's like to not be able to pay their rent. People are alone, people are suffering, people are struggling, and we need to make sure that they don't suffer alone. And while we're all suffering in our own unique capacity, when we heal one another, then God heals us. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that show mercy to those that are on the earth, and the one in the heavens will show mercy to you. He said that no one of you believes until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. And he also said that he is not a believer who sleeps with his stomach full while his neighbor is hungry. While all of us are experiencing some sort of vulnerability right now, we need to remember that there are those around us that have been experiencing vulnerability long before this, and their vulnerability has only been compounded. And perhaps through empathy and through service, we can come together and we can care for one another in a way that doesn't just demonstrate a desire to get back to the old normal, but in a way to continue striving for that dream of a united group of people, a united humanity, a united group of Americans, where we love one another, we care for one another, and we make sure that while everyone suffers, they don't suffer alone.